You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Great to have you with us on the program. Website thisweekinamerica.us. Well, we're talking about the Legacy series today, a novel 30 years in the making. Legacy is a story set in the future of mankind's previous sojourns through this and countless other worlds as experienced by the author Robert Maxxim. It describes one man's incredible journey through several lifetimes as far back as 1,000,000 years, his blunders and triumphs, and the many worlds and places where these experiences took place. The book also highlights advanced scientific and spiritual concepts, written in lyrical, romantic prose, but most of all, it's a powerful love story, deeply rooted in his unquenchable, desperate search through the vastness of space and time for his soulmate. 5 episodes, 1,000,000-year-old romance, past lives, space battles, intrigue, interdimensional scientific and spiritual principles of life. It's all in the Legacy series, and the author of the book is our guest on today's program, Robert Maxxim. Robert, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here.
There are so many things I want to talk about in this series, and we'll talk about the 2 episodes. Episode 1, which is The Search for Love, and Episode 2, which is The Unholy Menace. We'll touch the surface. I probably have to do more programs to get all of this in, but this is a fascinating read. And let's go back to where this basically started for you. I mentioned a novel 30 years in the making. July 13th, 1973, a young man in Whittier, California, and literally that night, your life changed. Talk about that experience.
Well, it was something that had been coming for quite some time. Ever since I was born, I had this love for what would be the infinite, for God. And I certainly wanted the truth. I wanted to see what was out there. At the time, I was a concert pianist, didn't know much about science or the universe as a whole. And one night, I'm looking out of my window and I see all of these spacecraft flying high in the sky. We term as UFOs. So I head out the door, take a telescope, and I'm watching around, one after another, and then I get very drowsy. After that point, I don't know what happened, how I got into the house, but I'm lying down in bed wearing a pajama that I had outgrown for years,
Wow.
which I never wore, but I had it on. Looked at the clock, 10 seconds before 10 p.m., out cold. Next thing I know, these experiences are taking place. I'm going through a light tunnel. I'm looking at very high spiritual worlds, beauty just beyond your comprehension. I'm learning all kinds of things from what would be called spiritual beings. And I've got the pictures in the book, also on my website that people can look at, brief descriptions of what happened, what I was taught. And I'm told, you're going to be back in 2 hours. Well, 10 seconds before 12 o'clock, I wake up. Precisely 2 hours. What transpired was about 100 years worth of time. I get back into this body, and it's like, what am I doing here?
Well, yeah, and you spent a lot of time. In fact, you spent years literally trying to refute this. Like I said, you had no scientific background, so you're not real sure what's going on, but you're basically trying to disprove rather than prove.
Right. It took me several years to find out what it was. But it was day after day, the same thing was happening. I was going to sleep, having some sort of a vision, coming back, next day, going to sleep, seeing, and I'm just going from world to world to world to different dimensions. And I'm writing all this information down, drawing pictures the best I could. And I still don't know anything about it. It took at least 12 to 15 years before I came to, and I realized, what I saw was real, and what other people have seen is the same thing. What other people have described is the same thing. All of a sudden, I start getting information on technology and how spacecraft fly, how they operate, the different parts of the engine. It's like, goodness gracious, I've got to write a book about this.
Well, and it took a number of years to do that. The book is the Legacy series. We're talking about Episode 1, The Search for Love, Episode 2 as well, The Unholy Menace. You can find the book literally all across the country. You can link on at our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and go directly to Robert's website. His website is rgaetan.com. That's the letter R, GAETAN.com. And you can find that at our website. We'll mention it throughout the program, rgaetan.com. All the information there on the series, Robert's background. He mentioned the illustrations, excellent illustrations in the book. As this is happening to you, and you were trying to sort it out, you mentioned you wanted to be a concert pianist. The science was the furthest thing from your mind. As you're telling people what you experienced, what was the reaction you were getting?
You're nuts, basically.
Very simply put, you're nuts.
Yeah, well, I took it very hard at first. It's like, okay, I better be quiet. I better not tell anybody about this. You know, you're talking about the 1970s. The big thing was disco and bell-bottom pants. Nobody really wanted to know anything about this.
Yes.
But I was fortunate. I was fortunate to get two sources. One was books from George Adamski, and I'll tell you about that experience in just a second. It was really interesting. The second was the Unarius Science of Life, the writings of Dr. Ernest L. Norman. When I read that, it's like, this is it. This is precisely what I saw. These are the principles I saw. The same information, almost word by word. I said, okay, I'm studying this.
Well, it's interesting because leading up to that, and we'll talk about those experiences, what you go to the library, as I say, you're in Whittier, California, you go to the library. Literally the first time in there, you weren't real sure exactly how this whole concept worked. You're walking through, and it's sort of like you were guided to a book.
Yeah, I'm walking in the library. I had never been there. I don't know my way around. I go to the darkest section of the library like a zombie. All of a sudden, I stand. I'm out of it, and my right arm begins to float up and down, three fingers tapping on a book. And I don't even realize what I'm doing. Suddenly, I wake up and, okay, this is not normal. Why am I tapping a book? I don't even want to be tapping a book. But what is this book? I pull it out, George Adamski, Inside the Spaceships, and then I flip a couple of pages, I read some of the context, and it's like, oh, that's exactly what I saw. Oh, I got to read this book. I must have read that book 100 times. As a matter of fact, I still do. To me, it's an inspiration, the same as Dr. Norman's books. What the world is missing out on is incredible. There's so much out there.
Well, let's talk about that. What are we missing if we're not in tune with what you are? We haven't seen what you've seen. We just sort of take each day as it comes along. And as I'm reading, I'm like thinking, wow, I'm missing a lot that Robert isn't.
What it comes down to is everything is energy. Now, science has made a lot of progress in that sense. Everything that you are, memories, cells, atoms, ideas, everything is a form of energy. And that is the best way to describe the spirit. Now, you see me as a body of flesh, but if you were to go if your eyes blink fast enough, you would see that I'm actually turning on and off in real time. We would call that a frequency of some sort. That's how energy manifests itself. And as science has proven that there's other dimensions, these dimensions link back to ours or are the source that bring the physical to being. Once you begin to understand those concepts, then you understand how to live and how to deal with different emotions that you have, which actually come from past experiences. Energy cannot be destroyed. You as a being have lived before. You carry those experiences, positive or negative, into the next life as a form of energy. And because it is energy, you will express it as a fear, as anger. I might get back into music because I was a musician before. As a matter of fact, I played the violin when I was 2 years old. And I remember the song that I played. Now, ask anybody, how could they do that? How could they play Minuet in G by Mozart at the age of 2 on your grandfather's violin?
Wow.
I repaired a watch when I was 1.5 years old. When I was 2 weeks old, I remember I looked at my dad and I had a mature conscience. I literally said to him in English, "Who am I?" I remember those things. Um, when I was 18 and I first visited the Unaria Center in San Diego, I was reading a book, minding my own business, and off to the side, there was a group having a conversation about what would be now episode number 4, which will be coming soon. Um, but I wasn't paying much attention. Out of the blue, the book fell out of my hands, my head dropped, I went out of it, and I saw a space battle. Uh, I saw every detail, the speed at which it was going, the type of craft, the console, the language being spoken, where it was at, where I lived from, how many ships were involved, what was the problem. This happened in about 3 seconds. And I knew precisely who I had been, what role I had played, how old I was, who we were fighting against, what the planet we were defending was. And then when I came out of that, I kind of went like, guys, help! What did I just see?
Yes, yes. Trying to put it all in perspective. You're
Yeah.
listening to This Week in America. Our guest on the program is the author Robert Maxxim. That's Maxxim. We're talking about the Legacy episode series, specifically episodes 1 and 2 on today's program. Legacy episode 1 is The Search for Love. Legacy episode 2 is The Unholy Menace. You can get all the information on all of the books and new ones coming out at Robert's website, which is rgaetan.com. Spell it out. That's rgaetan.com. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you can link on directly. It's the Legacy series. You can use that in trying to find out more information. Robert Maxxim with 2 X's. The book's available around the country, but a lot of great information at the website. Fascinating stories, and although the novel takes place in a futuristic setting, these are autobiographical stories, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And these are visions or dreams that I've had. And one thing that I want to specify is a lot of people claim to remember the past, and they give themselves names, titles. I was Napoleon, I was so and so. This remembering the past is for medicinal purposes only. This is not to make a name of ourselves. And I know that I have been certain individuals in the past, good, bad. Uh, but specifically, the dreams that I mentioned have been so intense. They have happened over several years, and they all seem to match a specific event. For example, in Atlantis, in Lemuria, or even further back, is a constellation called Orion and warfare that happened there. I can tell you that very recently I was in the deathbed. I was very ill. As a matter of fact, I lost consciousness, fell to the floor, literally broke my neck. I couldn't walk. I was very feverish. And when I realized, this is an energy from the past. I've got to do something about it, but I did not consciously try to figure out what it was. When I least realized it, all of a sudden I had a vision, and I saw myself as a Middle American Indian. I was being dragged to a forest by Spanish soldiers. I was sentenced, and then I was quickly hung from a tree. As soon as I saw, I knew who I had been. I knew who that person was. As soon as I realized that, Rick, I'm not kidding you. My neck pains and my fever vanished.
Wow.
I literally had 104 degrees, and I have been sick for 4.5 days. The character that I'm talking about is the Aztec Emperor Cuauhtemoc. And I did not know this about his death. I actually reviewed it. I talked with a couple of historians on the subject, how his execution took place, exactly like I saw it. So this is how energy works. Once you realize it and you overcome that shock, you have to know the science of overcoming it. You can literally wipe out disease. Most diseases are born from spirit, from memories.
Well, a lot of this information that Robert is talking about, you will find in the series Legacy. Legacy episodes 1 and 2 available. Information at the website rgaetan.com. You'll link on to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. As we anticipated, time is going way too quickly. We're just touching the surface on this program, and we will have Robert back with us. But what's interesting is you've taken all this information, which as we're reading, it's sometimes hard to believe that, okay, this actually, this is autobiographical. This actually happened to Robert. But you've spun it in such an intriguing story that you really can't close the book. You need to keep reading a little bit more and a little bit more. When did you decide, okay, I need to take this information and I am going to come up with the Legacy series?
That was about 12 years ago, and I am not a writer. I really don't know how to write, but after putting in myself that I will take myself out of the way. I will let another force, another form of inspiration work with me. Be my hands, be my eyes, be my heart to go into this. All of a sudden, I start typing, and I don't remember what I typed, and I'm just going and typing pages and pages and pages, crying profusely because of the power of what's going through. And I read it back, and it's like, oh my goodness, did I write this? What was happening is all those beings that I had contact with were actually coming in and inspiring me to do this. Most of what I wrote, I did not write. They did. And this is what I begged that would happen. The way that you read it, the phraseology, the culture, the speech form, that's how they live. And I wanted to portray how beings of other worlds, especially higher spiritual beings, how do they talk? How do they behave? What do they culturally believe in? What is their image of God? What is the future, the past, the present? How does it all interplay? What's the universe like? That's what I wanted to portray, and I tried my darnest, my best.
And you and whoever wrote the book did an excellent job in doing this. As I say, it's sort of like a book that's written itself. A couple of minutes left. We're talking about the Legacy series. Legacy Episode 1, The Search for Love. Legacy Episode 2, which is The Unholy Menace. The author, Robert Maxxim. Maxxim, our guest in the program. And his website is rgaetan.com. A lot of great illustrations in the books as well as with the website. In the Legacy series, very briefly, because we really don't have a lot of time, but we'll talk about it later. Bill Sullivan is the main character. Briefly, who is he and what's in store for him, so we can maybe pique a little interest. So we'll pick up the story the next time.
Bill is the main character, and he's a geologist on Mars, and he discovers ancient buried civilizations down there. He meets a young lady. He doesn't know that young lady is basically his soulmate. That character, Bill Sullivan, represents me, and he is the one that is going to impersonate my interface with a soulmate, how I actually dealt with beings of other worlds, how I talked with them, how I felt, what I went through, what deflations. I mean, how did I feel when I discovered I did something bad to humanity? The different visions, the different past lives that I've seen. What role did she play in those lives? She is a very important part of all of my lives, and it's basically my life. My last 1 million years has been a search basically for the soul. So that's the role that he plays. He becomes the main protagonist that feels like I feel. And when you read how he speaks and how he hurts and how he realizes what he did and how he overcomes it, his apologies, that's me. That's how I lived.
And it's such an excellent story. And then, like I say, as you're reading it, you're thinking, wow, this is actually Robert's life. This is what he's experienced. It's the Legacy series. I'm going to take a minute as we wrap up the program. How has this experienced, how have these experiences shaped you as a person?
I'm now a different person, Rick. I am more aware of the infinite. I'm more aware of life and how it should be led. And I only hope that this book will help others, will awaken them and give them a new life as well, a life of healing, a life of truth and honesty, which we all need. the world the way it is today is in a very sad state.
Yes.
It's gone left. I want to do everything I can to go right. And this is my heartfelt effort, my contribution to humanity, so that it introduces the science of life. And there are other works that are much more important than mine, but at least it's the doorway, the gateway to get to them. Especially, I would mention again the works of Ernest Norman, which I believe everybody in this world needs to have.
Well, you do it in a way that's informative, it's entertaining, it's the Legacy series. Legacy Episode 1, The Search for Love. Legacy Episode 2, The Unholy Menace. Information available on the others in the series, as well as illustrations and information at the website rgaetan.com. That's rgaetan.com. You go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Robert's website. The guest on the program, the author, is Robert Maxxim, Maxxim. It is a fascinating story. The time went by way too quickly. We will have Robert back on future programs. Robert, thank you for sharing with us. Really enjoyed this and look forward to pick up our conversation. Thank you.
Rick, we got to do it again. Thank you, sir.
Looking forward to it. Again, all the information on Robert and Legacy episode series available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.